Anybody here security experts? Yeah? You haven't heard it, don't know? Anyway, all right, here you go, Rhys. Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's funny, you know, Cloud Health talking tonight. We were at reInvent last year, and part of what a distributor does is it looks at, you know, what technology is coming up, and there's all sorts of. If you look at that wall over there, there's all these startups, and you know, a number of them are funded. And, you know, I've probably heard of none of them. There's like 60 or 70 of those companies. Some of those companies have gone to be, you know, household names, and a lot of them won't. At reInvent last year, there was a huge amount of technology, and part of what we do as distributors is we have a look at, you know, what's going to work, what can actually get into market, what can actually execute, and you know, there's plenty of stuff that's cool, but you're also looking for, do they have all that secret sauce that makes it happen? And Cloud Health was one of the vendors that we identified at reInvent last year that we felt was going to do well, and you know, we're happy to be working with them now. And the vendor that we're going to talk about today too, Dome 9, is another one of those vendors that when we saw them, we thought, these guys are onto something. Just a weird anecdote, because I was sitting at I did a round table yesterday with ARM, which is just it's industry press in the IT space, and they were talking about digital disruption in the cloud. And it surprised me, and it might surprise you, Daryl, sorry, that a lot of people still think the cloud isn't actually going to be a long-term thing. It's a true story.
Really?
Yep, to my face yesterday.
Wow.
And on-prem has got a long way to go, and of course they're crazy, and we like them that way, and that's good for us. I'd like to go to the next slide.
They're still out there.
They're still out there. So we've brought this as a part of the service that we're offering into market. It's white labeled by us, and it's available through partners, so that's a good thing to know, but it can be deployed. Well, it's deployed over AWS, but it's also a multi-cloud environment. Do you want to go to the next slide there? Sorry. Stop looking at my own face, that's good. Security concerns that list cloud adoption barriers. Visibility into infrastructure security, compliance, and privileged access. Who here is into compliance? Does anyone get excited about compliance? You do, kind of. Yeah, it's pretty sad. Forced to. Hey, compliance is pretty important, and look, one of the beautiful things about cloud versus, you know, I used to run a regional IT organisation pre-cloud, and let me tell you, one of the good things about cloud is, I don't know if a lot of you noticed, a lot of IT managers started reporting to CFOs, as opposed to being or CIOs going to finance managers. And the whole reason why that occurred was finance guys got sick of people lying to them from an IT perspective when they spend money, and said, you know what, we don't believe that you're actually going to deliver this on time, you're going to deliver this at the right cost, we're actually going to bring this in-house with us, and then we get some kind of confidence that actually what you deliver is actually going to work. Compliance is one of those areas that, of course, has just got more complex over time. You know, if you think about from the mid-90s through to now, we've just got more and more compliance. We've got export, we've got data management laws, we've got, of course, in the cloud, we've got all these different ways that we can, you know, spin up instances and spin up development cycles, and we can expose things in faster ways than we've been about before. The beauty of the cloud, of course, is we can take something from an idea and we can turn it into something really, really fast. We're never able to do that. My favourite example is how long it used to take us to set up a basis on SAP and get an SAP instance up and running. You're talking months. Now you can do it in 45 minutes on AWS. It's pretty amazing. Compliance, of course, becomes a pretty important component of all this sort of thing. It provides surety, it provides confidence that we're going it the right way. And it also means that we're not screwing up as we're trying to get really agile, really fast in terms of what we're doing and delivering good things into our customers. Who here has heard of a war story of someone being hacked or their identity privileges being taken by somebody else and spending a lot of money on their behalf? Yeah, it's happening. It does happen. And it's for best intentions, and people try really, really hard, but it's a pretty dynamic area that we work in. Next slide. Okay, so here's the challenge to scale. The more and more cloud that you do, the more difficult it gets. From a security ops point of view, it's a lack of security situational awareness. We've got access permission issues. We've got open and misconfigured ports and services, and then we've got shadow IT groups, people spinning up instances or spinning up environments that we have no idea about. But then we get the bill, we find out about them, or whatever else. I think from an access and permissions point of view too, is we've got more agile with our development cycles. We want less compliance and those sorts of things, and cloud's kind of given us a way to get around all those problems that we used to have, where we used to have to ask people to stand up the new environment, get the Rails moving. We don't really have that problem now. We can replicate, we can run scripts, we can do so many things without even having to worry about it. From a governance point of view, no automated approach. It's time-consuming remediation and verification, and a lack of detailed audit results. So compliance isn't easy, and if you've got a document, you give them a compliance document, and then you've got to turn it into something you can action in the cloud. There's a lot of steps involved in that, and you've got to translate what's on paper into something that you can actually measure. And then, of course, you've got to repeat that. We do things at speed, we do things at scale. Now, if you want to make sure that we're really compliant, you're only as current as the last time that you ran the report and make sure that it works. And you've got no easy way of auditing it. And then from a DevOps point of view, manual security process can't keep up with the pace of SDLC. Increased security risk because of the lack of automated assessment before deployment. How many times has that happened? Next slide. So this product is kind of built into 3 different parts: network security, compliance and governance, and the enhanced IAM protection. And I'll just step into that now. Next slide. Thank you. I'm going fast because people are in pizza cones. I know I am. So here's an area where Domain is pretty cool. It's cloud agnostic. We love AWS, but it's cloud agnostic. That means that the functionality grabs all the data from these different cloud environments. It has cloud agnostic policy orchestration. So if you set up a policy to do something that's written around PCI DSS compliance, for instance, it will apply those same rules and logics irrespective of the cloud that you operate in. That's pretty useful. There's a number of different pieces of functionality that we have here. And then, of course, we've got these little toolkits and pieces of functionality so we can tie things into our seam if we want to. There's API toolkits so we can deploy into infrastructure that might not be sitting in these clouds. There's alerts and notifications, an operations console, and there's also this mobile app, and I'll talk about that in a second. Next slide. Flying. Network security. Okay, so what does it provide? It provides an interesting visualization of the network topology and for rapid assessment. I've just put up, this is a piece of what they call clarity, and essentially what we're able to do is we're able to drill down into a particular instance or EC2 or whatever it might be, or something happening around a service, and we're actually able to see how that particular service is interacting with the external web. Where that's really useful is if someone's deploying something, for instance, from a software development point of view, and all of a sudden it becomes public from when it was previously behind the network and you couldn't see it getting out there. This provides us with a really simple visualization to be able to see how that's all working. And again, that works across multiple clouds, but certainly it gives us an instantaneous way of finding out whether we've got a problem or not as things start changing. It also has in-place remediation and security enforcement, so we can actually go through. There's a lot of workflow automation that's built into the tool and allows us to go and click and change things in the settings. So if something's actually wrong, doesn't mean that you need to go and fire up your AWS environment and start working on things. You can actually click straight through into that item and close it off, or you can actually close things off from the Domain instance itself. The consistent management and security policies across multiple public clouds. This is really cool. So one of the nice things about this is if I wanted to say have a policy around deleting things out of my environment, I can actually run a search dynamically around the word delete. It'll pick up all the policies that are there across all the different cloud environments that I have spun up, and I can block those across the board based on a particular piece of functionality and utilization. Create, delete, whatever you want. It makes it very, very easy to have a common approach across multiple clouds as a result. It's cloud native and agentless, so it protects all the cloud assets that you have. And because it's agentless, it means we can deploy it really fast. It can be set up in under 5 minutes. And there's also, again, this automation around the security side of things. So if there's a piece of functionality that we highlight inside the Domain platform, we're able to click in and get to it straight away to change it. Next slide, please. IAM safety. There's plenty of things that you can do in AWS, and there's plenty of best practices and useful things that you can do to harden your environment. This provides an additional layer at the top. We also always want to minimize the amount of access or the blast radius of a poor policy. One of the nice things that you can do with this is you can actually do this out-of-band authorization, and I'm going to skip through the rest of this. But the out-of-band authorization is really cool. So I can set up a policy that says, I'm going to allow you to create, or create a new S3 bucket or a new EC2 instance. But I can actually set your permission that by default, even though you've got that authorization access, if you go into AWS console and try and spin it up, it won't work. However, if I go to my mobile app, I can authorize it. And then my permissions will update dynamically. I can have it available for a period of time, and then I can make the changes that I need to make, and then it can expire automatically after a period of time too. So if someone's identity gets taken over, and then someone starts going crazy in that environment, that couldn't happen with something like Dome 9, but it also, from a development point of view, allows you to have those checks and balances. You can still get the functionality, but you're still able to measure, see the logging, see the activity that's going on inside the environment. Setting it up is super simple. You create a policy, you connect it to AWS, you invite people to download the app, and you're up and running. It's a 5-minute process to set up the app. It's probably about a 10-minute process to do all this. It's really, really easy to put these types of controls in straight away. Compliance engines, you're going to be excited. The assessment, remediation, continuous enforcement, you can create custom policies. So there's a number of policies, and I'll show you some screenshots in a second, because we've got lots of dot points and a lot of pictures. We'll get to the pictures in the next slide. There's over 500 industry best practices loaded into the system already that you can just start using from day one. It provides compliance frameworks, so PCI DSS. You can also print these assessments, so if you need to prove to someone, so who here is a chief risk officer in the company that they work for? You know, I do. A lot of the enterprises do. They exist, trust me. And this gives you a really good way of being able to show people that you're compliant. It also has an assessment history, so again, we're talking about, like we do software development life cycles, we want to be able to prove that things are going well. The remediation's there, we don't have issues in our environments every single time we update our software. We can also look at assessment histories over time in Dome 9 and make sure that our compliance profiles remain where they need to be useful. This is the compliance engine. A couple of things to look at here. This one first, mate. Zoomer. All right. There's some sample databases. There's also these alerts that you have set up out of the box in regards to Dome 9. And then there's also some of these best practices. So the CIS AWS Foundations frameworks there automatically. Best practices for AWS, all 486 rules and practices are in there automatically. HIPAA technical safeguards, PCI DSS, so whenever you've got financial data being stored on your devices, will find that useful. And then this is actually our environment. There's a copy of PCI DSS, which we've just made some amendments on. So you can copy policies, you can create your own policies in the workbench. This ability here to create new rules. And then you can run an assessment against all these things at any single one time, and you can, of course, drill down into these particular compliance areas.
Can you configure that to stop people doing something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you can, again, it can be done multi-cloud. It's not just all multi-regions or in single regions. You can lock down specific regions if you want to. It all comes down to the teams or particular assets, so you can get that granular in the way that runs. Cool. Next slide, thank you. Okay, I had to black out a couple of things here. But this is our compliance dashboard. So these are our AWS bundles and a couple of Azure bundles that we've got sitting out there. And this is our current compliance scores. This dashboard just shows you the last time that you ran these particular rule sets, and then it shows your compliance based on the way that you configured your environment to those compliance scorecards. Now, if we go back to the normal way of doing these sorts of things, you've got to develop it, you've got to get a piece of paper. So sorry, if you go back to the last statement, the CIS framework? CIS framework's like 139 pages worth of text that you've got to go through if you want to implement that properly, or you can just run it in this and have a look at the results at the end of it and send someone a report. It's heaps easier. This is the network rules, HIPAA, PCI DSS, there you go, CIS Foundation, so that you can see there. Now, you're not always going to be as compliant to some sets of rules as others. That's by default, because of course they have different postures and different requirements. You don't want to be fully PCI DSS compliant if you don't need to be. You don't need to lock down that environment, but you do probably want to be best practices around networks and whatever else. Now we're just going to drill down into this particular bad boy right here. Next slide. And this is one of the things that we can look at from a network report point of view. And of course you can also go back in time. Now I've just filtered out all the stuff that we passed. And this is an environment that we've got running at the moment across 14 regions. And we've got 2 issues here. Now, actually what these issues are, these are 2 Domain 9 best practices where we should be turning on the functionality to allow the environment to actually, this is set up as read-only at the moment, but this is saying their network best practices that you turn it on so you can do the automatic enforcement. So that's what these 2 things are here where we're not complying, but essentially really simple dashboard, really easy to see, really easy for people to understand in regards to what the profile looks like. And as we drill down into these areas too, which we can't do because I haven't got them on the slide here, you can also then see the detail, what does that actual area of compliance mean in real terms? How do you access it in AWS so you can drill down into here and actually then go to the particular area inside AWS where you need to make those changes, and you can change it, or you can just change it directly from the system. Next slide. More compliance, so we can just go to the assets in the different groups and we can do further filtering. We can set alerts based on those particular areas as well. We can run policy-specific reports of those areas and essentially go to our heart's content based on the different criteria. Next slide. So I've just kind of covered fairly rapidly, I guess, some pretty heavy areas of compliance. Now, again, I just come back to the fact that to do this stuff properly is pretty difficult. One of the beauties of the cloud is the fact that we can get to where we need to go faster. What we get with the tool is control, so we can enforce best practices. They provide us with those best practices. That's part of the value of getting an application that's also a service. We can also prevent unauthorized changes because we can mitigate profiles. We can do this out-of-band process where we can get people to actually two-factor the fact that they're going to access them and restrict their rights from the default profile. And then we can also make sure that we conform into compliance standards. We've got the ability to assess and visualize those topologies as well. So if something's not right or we're not sure what's going on, we can quickly and easily get to where we need to go quickly. The reason why that's so important, of course, is because if something's going wrong on a network, so I heard a statistic, and you can probably correct me on this, but it's something like AWS environments are getting scanned every 9 minutes or something like that to look for open environments.
That's very right.
Yeah, so
It's less.
It's less.
It's all the time.
So if you get this wrong, guys, chances are someone's going to find out pretty quickly. And funnily enough, we're working with another company at the moment called ProtectWise. We deployed some sensors in some environments, and it was absolutely incredible to watch this over the end of financial year, some of the hacks that were people getting through the firewall and actually trying to do things like man-in-the-middles, command and controls, everything like that. So if you've got things that are open, people are going to try, and especially with things like AWS where there's money to be made, there's a whole black market in regards to people who have taken over instances. And also remediate. It's great to be able to see things, but if you can remediate things and take care of it quickly, again, you want to stop breaches, you want to protect breaches, and you want to remediate that as quickly as possible. Domain 9 provides an automated workflow approach for that. Next slide. Okay, so just to reiterate why it's good, you can deploy it quickly, it works over all the environments that you have, and it's agentless. It'll scale as big as you want it to go, because it's in the cloud, and the cloud is awesome. It's compliant to all the major standards that you need, as well as if you need to get compliant to additional standards, things that aren't there, you've got an ability and a rules engine to be able to do that, but more importantly, once that's up and running, it'll work across multiple clouds. It'll be flexible to your policies, and you can scale out that compliance policy as far as you want to. Again, if you've got instances in the US where you've got a team that spins up in the US or in Europe or vice versa in Asia, and you want to make sure they're compliant, pretty difficult to do if you haven't got automation solutions in place. And then no entities left behind, so you can look at Lambda, EBS, RDS, any kind of cloud instance that's spun up of note, they're able to track and measure. It's API, so it's extensible, and essentially you've got this ability to provide consistent policies. Last slide. Okay, so I just want to close off with the use cases. So there's 3 major use cases. One is compliance and audit, so it's verifiable security. My cloud is verifiably compliant with the areas of compliance and risk that I need to be able to mitigate. Secure DevOps, you can run this at speed, you can be as agile as they are, and you can make sure that you're absolutely secure through all stages of the process. Again, one of the things with this whole microsegmentation, the ability to spin things up quickly, is it's not when we can move to production when things get exposed, we can inadvertently expose something at any point of the software development lifecycle now. And of course, the security operations is just faster, it's simpler, and it's a lot less work for all of us to do. I think there's one more slide. It's kind of so. If you're interested and you want to find out some more information, you can go to our website. You can hassle myself or John. There's somewhere around there. There's John over in the corner, hiding. Talk to Daryl. Yeah, look up on the website. Dome 9 is the technology that we're using, but it's a white label solution through us. This kind of stuff's important. It's all periphery. I mean, we're building great things, right? That's what we do in the cloud, but making sure that we keep things squeaky keeps the dollars rolling so we can develop more and more wonderful things in the future. So with that, I'll go to the questions.
Questions? Anyone?
How long does it take for the assessments to run?
Yeah, so the assessments can be done in like 4 or 5 minutes for an assessment. It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick. And you can run them as many times as you like. I haven't seen any issues where you've got too many, there's too many agents deployed and it's slowing it up on that basis. It seems to be quite scalable and extensively.
Hey, what's the license model?
Yeah, so there's two licensing models. There's a per agent model, and then there's a percentage of the overall charges in your AWS environment. Talk to your partners in regards to that to get pricing. So everything goes through partners with us, but it's pretty cheap. It's for what you're getting. It's really really cheap actually. So it's certainly not a high robbery in the pricing. It's appropriate.
Any more questions? No?
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.